No, Ghost User seems to be on top of varying things up. From game 1 to game 2, there was drastic swings of what he actually planned to do from the very beginning. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he had something extra in store for us here.
Well, what's really cool is that against Protoss, he's known for sending a queen out very early and dropping a creep tumor on the third base. So I think that that could potentially be seen here in this game. More creativity with just the creep spreading. Love it, love it. Down on the bottom left, the man who is up 2-0. I had faith in him before the series started, and I continue to have faith in him going into Game 3. The man up 2-0, it is Millennium's Gosu Yuza.
And spawning up in the top right-hand corner, the person I will never bet against because statistically speaking, you will always get some money if you keep betting on him. Maybe not today, I'm not sure. We'll go by the name of MVP.
Wow, I mean, almost speechless, but as a caster, I'm totally not. I'm just saying that, Killaris.
Yes.
I am equipped and ready to talk. I've always been equipped and ready to talk from my casting bungalow here in SoCal. But, I mean, it's still nuts to me to think of the Zerg vs. Terran matchup that has fallen for so long down these, like, standard lines. Mm-hmm. Like this is like it's like just what you do. There's a script that both players are following, and if anyone ever says, "Why don't you do this?" people always have that prepared answer. Like, "Why don't you go roaches and try to attack him and drop him?" Because it's risky, and if he has banshees, you lose. And Ghost Caesar's like, "No, I like winning more so than being right." That's right. Well, actually, I guess it was the same thing in that circumstance, but still, totally boss.
I know too many people that will just shut down your creative ideas from the very beginning with those, as you say, prepared scripts. But, you know, if you can execute something to the best of your ability and, you know, you're confident in it, then you can come along with something that's pretty and make it work. Yeah. So MVP's got a mountain to climb right now in the form of Ghost User.
Dude, this is going to be so cool if Ghost User manages to pull this off. I mean, Genius and MMA wins. That's like one of those things where it makes people go, "Oh wait, wasn't he that guy who beat those two really good Koreans that one time?" And that's a really gross spot to be in. As being remembered for having one win, and you just don't remember any others. But if he wins here against MVP, that's a pretty sensational little medal to pin on the jacket.
Yeah. You're right.
However, of course, I mean, we did even see, you know, Evil Genius's Suppy go up 2-0 against Parting and then lose 3-2. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to buckle down.
Yeah, and again, I'm still not betting against MVP. I still think he can rise to the challenge. He's done it many, many a time in the past, so no reason he couldn't here. But Ghost Users, admittedly, looked on point. And looked very, very strong. I'm not saying I dislike Ghost User. I actually really like Ghost User's play, especially something you pointed out before, which was the creep tumor against Protoss at the third. In fact, I'm pretty sure in the group stage or the qualifier, he did it on this very map, actually. And it's so annoying to deal with because, you know, some people, they just open Stargate and they don't have a robo for a while, and then they don't have an observer for a while. And even if they do have an observer, it's up the other side of the map, scouting out creeps there. So...
Excuse me. We're still seeing the early 3-queen mix from Ghost User. Could be 4, but there we have a very odd, swift, single gas. And yes, he is going for some sort of weird little extractor trick cancel to get stuff started. There's the Roach Warren coming up, so it looks like it's going to be the Violet-style fast Roach push on the ground to hit the opponent right when he starts building those Hellions.
Don't mind that too much at all. The Zerglings poke up, they see the factory being started, which is good intel for him as well as that reactor. They do die off to some Marines, but not too big a deal as he's got that intel. And with that, you're right, the Roach push that can come from this is pretty annoying to deal with Terran. It doesn't normally kill Terrans outright. It can have the potential to, but for the most part, it's a real annoyance at that natural, delaying a lot of mining time there.
Yeah, I mean, MVP also has suffered some serious blows to this early on, and then instantly bounced back, most notably versus Violet at MLG recently. So, I mean, especially with this transition into Bio that we see coming out of MVP, he is going to be more than equipped to just slap this attack around with a large trout.
And look where this queen's going. I think we may have a queen heading over to the third to drop a creep tumor. Yeah, it's looking certainly like that, as well as that overlord also moving to that direction. So I expect the layer to be morphing in very soon, I would think.
I mean, this is a smart play because it's not just, I'm going to build roaches and attack him derp. It is, I'm going to build roaches, which I can use to protect this queen that's going to drop creep up at his third herp derp. Like, it's like a one-upping of that thought. All these little pieces are working together and coordinating. It's not just a random thing here and a random thing there.
Yeah, there's a lot of synergy to it, and Gosu User here with this, I mean, he's going to poke forwards, he's going to see the bunker, but you're right, this contains, in essence. He can't move out to the third location just yet. The queen is going to be fine, it's going to survive, it's going to get home, probably. And the roaches are actually pushing forward, trying to kill off a few SCVs.
Just waltzing right on in, going to take out some SCVs. Not an excellent play. Really, didn't really contribute much other than killing off 7 workers, which is still, I would say, an overall loss for Gosu User. The time invested in that roach set, and of course the roaches themselves lost. But it did buy the opportunity to send this queen up safely to this north side, where the layer is almost done. The creep will begin his glorious puke.
And for there, we have the Baneling Nest as well as the Infestation Pit on the way. So Gosu User looks as if he's anticipating to go into a very, very similar macro strategy that we saw in game number 1 with the Ling Baneling Infestor mid-game. Hellions trying to get in, but they're not going to be able to do so. The Roaches deny them. And with that, I mean, Ultralisks, I mean, how do you feel about Ultralisks in comparison to Broodlords going into this map architecturally?
Well, I mean, it's a lot down to the timing of what MVP is going to want to use. The less attacking that a Terran does in the mid-game, the bigger they can strike at around 14, 15, 16 minutes. The more, and that's, again, the time where you are going for Broodlords, but you die. So in that circumstance, you got to get Ultralisks. But the less that a Terran player attacks, or excuse me, the more the Terran player attacks in the mid-stage of the game, the harder it is for him to do a follow-up attack. So if he attacks and he's aggressive, you can go for Broodlords pretty comfortably.
God, and this creep spread is actually just getting a little bit out of hand up at the north as well. He's actually going to be binding this together so quickly with the fact that he spread the creep as well, again, in a middle location. He didn't just spread it in one location, he spread it in 2 to join up his natural and his main bases with that location to then apply pressure later on. It's really cool to see. I love creep spread dynamics, and Gosu User's making full use of them, absolutely.
And it's cute to note that the creep tumors are spreading along the north ridge, do an excellent job of spotting medevac drops.
Yeah.
And interestingly, you generally don't want the Terran player to take an early third base. And as in Gosu User's position, he's delayed his own turn with this attack. But now, with all this creep spreading, he's also double delaying the Terran, so sort of balancing out.
And those units are actually moving into a position to assault the third here, or at least the units that are trying to clean up the third, as they do clean up all of the creep up there, so he can expand eventually, but still. And meanwhile, that medevac on the way down to the bottom left-hand location here, trying to put on some pressure, trying to draw Gosu User away, but he takes a big volley from those Hellions up to the north from those Zerglings. Nice fungal.
This is going to be a difficult spot for Gosu User if he loses all these Infestors. I mean, again, not really the hugest gain, only considered a gain if he can get a Queen up there and drop some creep, but in the main base, Marines are just ripping down that spawning pool at the back. This is not a clean game from Gosu User. He's having a lot of difficulties.
Yeah, especially since I was assuming he was going to commit to that Ling Baneling Infestor mid-game. Now he's going to be limited to the Lings and Banelings. He's forced to actually produce way more Roaches now to actually go for this, even though he's getting the melee and carapace upgrades. So they're not going to be as heavily benefited, but this is the best way to tide you over whilst you're still having to get the spawning pool out.
Yeah. I mean, it's all you can really do in Gosu User's position. The one thing that he does have an opportunity to do, though, is to make a big attack up at this third base, because he's building all these units that are only good for aggression, not really so great for defense, so could open himself up for that, but it looks like with that swell of drones, he's committing to going for longer-term, late-term play. He's going to be getting the 2-2 upgrades. He's going to resume building Zerglings.
Still more Infestors on the way here. The Zerglings just positioning themselves to try and deny any more drops that would come along. Creep does spot this a drop on the way over to the bottom right. So for now, MVP pulls back. He realizes he's been spotted. 2-2 starts up, and more barracks go down for MVP here to try and crank out more macro. But I feel that he's way more comfortable in this game than he has been in the previous two. The fact that he got that damage done feels far more entrenched and confident in his position.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Terran player and you just see, like, you know, you killed a bunch of roaches, then you killed a bunch of roaches and infestors, and then you did a profitable drop in his main base, you're just like, oh yeah, cool, I'm just going to macro up, and he's going to start teching a hive eventually, and I'm just going to pierce through and kill him. And in fact, if you look at the units lost tab, it's just so much stuff lost for Gosu User when compared to MVP. MVP, though, looking in his main base, he is kind of behind on his barracks transitions. He's really only had 3 barracks for the longest time. He really needs to get more like 9.
Yeah, especially with that third being crewed very, very quickly. Ooh, picks up some Marines in the middle ground, but meanwhile he's going to drop at the back of the main as well as at the back of the natural. Double-pronged aggression here, trying to push on the pressure very, very quickly. A few drones come off the land to actually deal with that, but at the same time, he's doing some damage in the main. He realizes with this drop as well that the hive is morphing in. Didn't need to waste any energy on a scan. They're well positioned in the back of this main actually against these Zerglings. Very cost-effective trade here for MVP.
Oh my god, is he killing a lot of Zerglings. He's got to get out of there before he ends up getting fungal too hard, though. There's a small set of Zerglings that have actually waltzed their way up to the 3rd base and did a pretty good amount of damage. But these drops are really giving Gosu User some trouble. I do feel, though, that MVP might be overcommitting a little to these drops. Every drop that he does eats into the final number of Marines he has in his push.
Speaking of one of those pushes, he's actually going to push forwards here with the siege tanks and the Marines, fleeing back to the safety of those siege tanks there, and does not get the pick off of the 4th base just yet, but I think, he has to somehow fall back at this point. I mean, there's a lot of Banelings morphing in. It's going to be very difficult to break this location with that many Marines as long as these Banelings morph in. And the Ultralisk Cavern now starts.
But 2-2 is not done yet. MVP is getting a little eager. Oh my god, there's a huge swell of extra units. Will Ghost User be able to hit before 2-2? He only has 6 more seconds. No, it looks like 2-2's going to be done right in time, and there's Ghost User swinging in. The angle's still very patiently executed. Unbelievable fungal growth, nailing big packs of those Marines, and amazingly, Gosu User took this force out.
Yeah, that was a really, really nice engagement there by Gosu User. He was rallying his Banelings round to the side to try and sweep in from the back, and all of that worked in tandem really nicely with those fungals as well, blistering down those medevacs, and to just execute a really, really nicely done engagement. And from there, MVP now has still been macroing behind it. He's in a good spot with his new barracks now coming up, but the Ultralisks are now on the way. With 3-3 and chitinous plating, he times these upgrades out so well for these Ultralisks to benefit very, very heavily once they're about to pop.
Well, I mean, it's looking more and more good for Gosu User over time. Still hasn't really established gas at his 4th base, but he does have a 4th base. There was some misfiring from MVP. He didn't aggressively take out that expansion. Back in the main base, we do see the full set of Terran stuff finally rounding off. 8 barracks, 2 factories, +3 attack for Marines, no +3 armor yet, but 3-3, and chitinous plating all en route for Gosu User. The big goal now for Ghost User is to get up a 5th base while getting the gases at his 4th. The bottom right is an ideal position to be in because that top left expansion from MVP is it's so far away from the bottom right, so it makes it difficult for MVP to attack and defend.
Yeah, Ghost User still powering out those upgrades. They're going to be done in just a second. And with MVP now gearing up quite a sizable force himself and mixing in the good amount of Marauders. Well, he's only going up to 8 quite very soon, and against 4 Ultralisks being complemented by all of these Zerglings and Banelings, it's going to be hard for him to properly fire down on those Ultralisks. A few Marines do get caught by fungals, and actually, it looks like Ghost User actually wants to go in for the kill.
Ghost User trying to step in, but he hasn't really been able to land big fungals on those Marine packs, so the Ultralisks are not really getting to do as much damage. There's the huge hits, and now finally getting the Ultras and Banelings to connect. Some Roaches that are indeed speed upgraded, or are indeed not speed upgraded, excuse me, trying to trample their way forward up to that 4th base, and I'm not sure it'll be enough.
Oh, he's actually tried to focus down this Planetary Fortress, but it's not going to go down. They're repairing too heavily. Nice fungal once again, though. Locks down all of...
Wow!
And, I mean, he still gets the good trade, but not the Planetary Fortress in the end.
There's the bottom right expansion from Gosu User. He's still making a lot of Lings and Banelings. He doesn't even seem to be considering going for Broodlords. He's just going to blast down the front door with Ling, Baneling, Infestor. No Ultralisks on the field right now, just flooding with that layer tech units. Did he get the attack upgrade for Zerglings? No, of course not. Why would anyone ever get that upgrade? And there's the crunch. See you later, 4th base. Gosu User is in the lead.
Yeah, MVP still trying to scramble to get some of these Marines out and try and repair his medevacs, actually. Really, again, meticulous movements here by MVP, trying to make sure that every single one of his units is going to last. He's getting out quite a few more orders now. He's up to 12. Wow. Okay, he's not up to as many as I was hoping he would be to try and deal with the Ultralisks, but the Ultralisks still are on the way. 3 more being added to this very sizable army of Gosu User, and it's so hard to deal with a flood of this many Zerglings with Adrenal Glands and 3-3. They actually do massive amounts of DPS.
You know, and Ghost User is not going for gigantic numbers of Infestors. He's going for some. It's always between 4 and 8. And then all the rest of the gas is into Banelings and Ultralisks. It allows him to continue to be aggressive. He doesn't run into these situations where a blast kills off a bunch of units before they're able to do, or kill off a bunch of Infestors before they're able to spend the energy. Wow. MVP is trying to position himself. Gosu User very patiently skirting around those outside edges. And there he goes.
He looks like he wants to try and connect with a lot of those tanks. He does on every single front here as the Zerglings just rip apart everything. More Fungals land down, locking those units in position for the Ultralisks and Zerglings to actually close the gap. No micro allowed here for Mr. MVP as the Zerglings once again flood through. Ultralisks claiming the victory with their Kaiser Blades as well. MVP now and GG.
Wow.
What?
Wow, did I ever win $1? Oh my god, Gosu User has 3-0'd the best defensive Terran player in the world.
That was...
And will advance to the round of 8.
That was a pretty convincingly $1, I must admit. God damn.
Wow.
MVP.